Good morning, everyone. Sorry, we are a few minutes late here. Um, as usual, some technical difficulties. Learning how to use Facebook Live is not always the easiest, especially telling when these things start. So, more than likely, I just started in the middle of a sentence, but we're going to go from here. I'm fully expecting that my neighbors, landscapers, will show up anytime now. They're a little late today. Um, I'm enjoying the quiet, so maybe we'll be lucky and be able to get through this today. So I just wanted to do a quick update on the COVID-19 situation. As you know, we have more and more things opening, things starting to return to normal. However, I want to make sure that everybody's staying safe. Just remember that just because governors open things back up and we see salons opening and nail salons opening and different areas are opening and being able to conduct their business does not mean that the virus has disappeared and the dangerous effects thereof are still out there. So while we return back to our life before COVID activities, make sure that you are still being aware and using the same cautions that you were using during the period that we were staying at home. Um, I was looking at the statistics this morning, and I look at the Texas Medical Center statistics, which look over Houston and surrounding areas. So it includes Austin, Brazoria, Chambers, Fort Bend, Galveston, Harris, Liberty, Montgomery, and Waller counties. So kind of Harris and everything around Harris. Um, and looking at that trend of new cases being reported, it's staying along the same paths. The first of the month, we had the sixth highest report day of almost 300 cases on the first and second. And then it went down on Tuesday. We had a low of 167 cases. And then it went back up to 261. And yesterday they reported 200 cases. Um, Hospitalizations are following the same trend. For instance, yesterday they actually had 64. It was one of the higher days. So 64 hospitalizations from COVID-19. So with that being said, it's not saying that we should shut things down and start, hiding in our homes. We have to start getting back out into public at some point and living our lives again. This is just to say, make sure that you are being safe, that you are following the same guidelines that you followed when we had the stay-at-home orders. Wear your gloves, wear your face masks, wash your hands, make sure that you wash your hands for the length of time that they suggest. Um, Hand sanitizer, make sure you use that. Just use the same precautions. Limit your exposure to people that you haven't been, staying home with. Keep your 6 foot distance as much as you possibly can. Um, I think we're probably going to see another spike in these cases. However, I think that, well, let me clarify. We're going to have a spike in hospitalizations. I think we're going to start seeing a decrease in the number of cases reported because I just heard that they are stopping the free drive-through testing. And so the number of cases being tested and reported obviously are going to go down because more people or fewer people are going to have access to that testing. Now they're suggesting that you go to your primary care physician to get tested. So it's adding a layer of difficulty in getting that test administered. And so I think that we're going to see the number of cases reported decrease, but that does not necessarily mean that that's a decrease in the number of cases out there. I do think that we're probably going to see an increase in the hospitalizations. So just be careful this weekend. It's Mother's Day weekend. Make sure that you are following all those guidelines. Like I said, keep mom safe, keep yourself safe. Um, you still have your video conferencing and that sort of thing. So just make sure that nobody's going to be unnecessarily exposed to this if you have a visit with your mom. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today, in addition to the COVID-19 update, is when you're going through a divorce, it's a scary time, and you're not always thinking about all the things that you should be thinking about to protect yourself and your assets. Um, so I actually have a checklist that I send to my clients, and if anybody wants that checklist, just reach out to me. You can either message me through Facebook or send me an email at Duana@boswelltexaslaw.com, and that's DUANA at BOSWELLTEXASLAW.com, and I will send that checklist out to you. It's just some things to think about when you're either contemplating divorce or you've actually been served with a divorce. So the first thing is to always evaluate your safety and that of your children. So you want to make sure if you're in a domestic violence situation that you do things as safely as possible. Contact your local women's shelter. Um, they have some programs where if they don't have room in their shelters, that they've contracted with hotels that they can get you some safety and a safe place to stay while you're figuring things out. Um, Also, make sure that you call the police. The police will come out, and if there is a situation, then they will remove the abuser, whether it's by arrest or having them go stay somewhere else, just to make sure that the situation gets diffused. And that'll allow you some time to make some arrangements to protect yourself. Um, when somebody is arrested for domestic violence, there is, I would say more times than not, a emergency protective order that's issued that would keep the abuser out of the home for 60 to 90 days. You want to make sure if you have pets, ensure their safety. Take them with you if you can. If you can't, make sure that get to know your neighbors. See if they'll take care of the pets or family members or just anybody that can watch them and make sure that they're safe. You want to make sure that if you have the ability that you have at least 2 weeks of cash on hand, and that's in a case where we have domestic violence or anybody just files for divorce. Sometimes the other spouse cuts them off. So you want to make sure that you've got enough cash on hand available to you immediately to be able to pay 2 weeks of your expenses if you didn't have access to the bank account or a credit card. You can protect your interest in any joint bank accounts by moving half of anything that's in a joint account to another account. Make sure if you do that, that you keep very, very good records of what you spend that money on, because you will be called to do that in court to prove that that money was necessary for you to remove for your living expenses. Change your ATM password. So if your spouse knows how to get money out of your account, make sure you change that password. You want to either freeze any joint credit cards or turn on the notifications that sends you an email anytime something is charged. And that way you know what's being charged on the accounts if you're not able to close or freeze them. If you need to, for living expenses and that sort of thing, go ahead and open up a new credit card, and especially in a domestic violence situation where you don't want him to necessarily know where charges are being made to protect your safety, then you would definitely want to make sure and get a separate credit card if available to you. One key thing that I always have my clients do first thing is to get a copy of your credit report. You can get a free credit report every year by going to annualcreditreport.com, and it allows you to pull your report, and it gives you a report from Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. So you get all three of the major credit reporting with one set of questions that are asked. You want to do that to make sure that no credit has been taken out in your name that you didn't approve. And it also helps your attorney with knowing any debts that are out there and possible see any assets that might be linked to a debt. So there's some very good information that can be obtained from that. Likewise, make sure that you can get copies of your tax returns. There's a lot of information that attorneys can get from a tax return. You want to do an inventory of your assets. There are many, many free apps that you can get on your phone where you can put in all the information on the assets that you have and valuations. A lot of them allow you to upload pictures. There's some I've seen out there that you can take a picture and it does its best to match it to a type of asset that it could be. but you would want to have serial numbers, license numbers on cars, VIN numbers, as much as you can that can identify those cars and assets. So the more information you can put into these inventory apps, the better. These apps are also good for any kind of insurance claims that you may have. So it's not just in divorcing cases, it may be something that you want to download and go ahead and get your assets put in. Especially living in the area like we do, that's, we get hurricanes. So this would help insurance claims if any damage is ever done to the house. You may want to think about getting a post office box so that all your mail can be diverted there, and you are the only one that has a key and access to it, so that your spouse doesn't steal mail. If in temporary orders you were awarded the temporary use, or upon final orders you are granted the home, you want to make sure that you secure your house. So you want to make sure that you change any alarm codes, that you change the door locks. You make sure that if there's any window locks that are automated in any way, that those are changed. If you have a spare key hiding place, make sure that you change where that's at. You want to make sure that you change anything so that spouse or former spouse no longer can have access to the home that you've been awarded. In a domestic violence situation, I would say the same thing, change the locks, because the spouse should not be in the home with you anyway. Some other things that you might want to think about: change your voicemail password. So, when we're married and we're trusting and we have our spouse, we share a lot of our passwords and they're able to get into our accounts. Make sure that you change all those. Voicemail password is one of them. You don't want them to be able to get into your voicemail and remove messages that you may need to have. Or, they can gain information on who your attorney is that you may not be ready for them to know, or pretty much any kind of information that can be left in a voicemail they could get a hold of. So you want to make sure and change those. You want to make sure that you change your email. I actually had a case where he got into her email and sent threatening messages to himself as if they were from her. And that caused some issues in the case. So it's not something that we want to see happen. So make sure that you change email passwords. Same on any social media websites, any banking, any shopping services that you use, such as Amazon, any medical portals that you may have, the portal that you have with your attorney. A lot of times I suggest that you go ahead and get a new email address that you use just for communicating with your attorney, and that way they wouldn't have access to that. Make sure that you don't use passwords that they would be able to guess easily, or that they know that you use commonly in the past. One big thing on when you're changing your password on social media accounts, do not change any of the content. It's very important. That can be considered destruction of evidence if you do that. However, I would stop posting on social media as soon as you know that a divorce is coming. Just make sure that your friends don't tag you in things and that you basically become a ghost on social media. Don't delete your account. Don't change your account that's already there. But going forward, make sure that you are not very present on social media. That's where we get a lot of our good information that we can use against the other side, or the other side can use against you in divorces in some cases. You want to make sure that if the house is awarded to you, that you get, or a car is awarded to you, anything that's got a key, make sure that you have all of the spare keys. Garage door openers is another big one. Make sure that you get all the garage door openers. If you're not sure that you're getting those things, have locks changed, have the garage door opener changed, do everything you need to so that they don't have access. You want to freeze any joint investment accounts. You don't want them to be able to remove things or change those accounts or beneficiaries until the case is final. So make sure if you're working with a financial planner or any kind of professional with your accounts, that you let them know that you're going through a divorce, and that I know in Harris County right now there's a standing restraining order, so you're not allowed to make any changes to those accounts until you get a court order. You want to make sure that you start getting any statements or invoices, accounts, any communications that you're getting from any account that you hold. So investment accounts, banking statements, credit card statements, invoices for services, utility statements. You want to start gathering all those items so that you have them available for your attorney. You might want to set up a separate cell phone account. So if you're sharing an account with your soon-to-be ex, make sure that you get a separate account and that you get your phone on that so that they're not able to call and cancel the service, and then you're without a phone. So I see I've got a question over here. What about text communication with children when they are with ex-spouse? So a lot of times that's put into a decree, but if you've provided a cell phone, as long as it's not an excessive communication or a communication that's going to disrupt the visitation with the other parent, then there should not be a problem with that communication. Courts want to make sure that each party, that when the children are with them, that the child is getting valuable time with the parent they're with, and therefore the other spouse's communication with that child is usually pretty limited during those periods of possession. But if you've provided a phone, for instance, the long summer possession period, or if they're going to be traveling, provide them a phone. And if the spouse isn't allowing reasonable communications, that is something that I would document, and it may be something that is used for modification in the future if it becomes excessive. So some other things to think about once the divorce is finalized is make sure that you change your auto insurance for any car that's awarded to you. You want to make sure you separate out any accounts that you are sharing with your now former spouse. You want to make sure that you change beneficiaries on any life insurance policies or any other accounts where there's a beneficiary designation. You want to make sure that you maintain any insurance on your assets. So car insurance, homeowners insurance, renters insurance if you're renting. Make sure that you've got that covered and updated and everything is changed into your name. You want to make sure that you update your will and estate plan. You definitely don't want your medical power of attorney to be your ex-spouse that you've just gone through a nasty divorce with. If for some reason, and I've had this happen before, spouses are very, very friendly towards each other. It's just not, marriage was not for them. And they want their now ex-spouse to still be the person that inherits under their will or as their agent. You would need to update your documents after the divorce is final in order for that to be a clear indication that that's what your wishes are. Most courts will treat divorced spouses, if they're listed as the beneficiary in the will or on other documents, a lot of times they'll treat them as if they had passed away before you. And so they wouldn't get their share. So if you want to reiterate that that's who you still want to have be your beneficiary, then you would need to update those after the divorce. Change any healthcare directives. Make sure that all your estate planning documents you've changed to somebody that you trust that may not be your spouse or ex-spouse. Make sure that you are still evaluating any physical safety of you or your children or pets. Take any precautions that you need to make sure that you remain safe. And you want to make sure that the title transfers, deeds are promptly recorded as soon as that divorce is finalized. Most of the time, your attorney is going to take care of that for you and make sure that those get filed. But it's always a good idea to double check and make sure that those deeds and everything got filed with the property records. So that's just a little bit of a checklist that we give to clients so that they can think of some things that may not be on the top of their mind. So that's all I have this week. I just want to wish all you mothers out there a very, very happy Mother Day. I hear it's going to be pretty in our area. And until then, I will talk to you all next Friday. Talk to you soon. Bye.